my AL West hot take was, and I'm paraphrasing myself, I said the Angels, and I'm sorry to Max, will once again be mediocre. They will be. They just will. They will not trade Shohei Ohtani because they want to still have a chance to retain him in free agency, which they won't. So they will lose Shohei. They won't get anything for him at the deadline. And because of all this offseason, we'll start the rumors and reports that Mike Trout wants out. If Shohei walks and they don't even get anything for him at the deadline, which would be very Angels to have happen,
well,
this winter, next offseason, we're going to start hearing the Mike Trout wants out stuff.
I don't think that's necessary. I don't think that's an aggressive take at all.
Well, I mean, he's been through a decade of mediocrity and missing the playoffs, and he's never said a peep about get me the fuck out of here.
No, but I'll say this too. How old is Mike Trout now?
33.
So I'm gonna say this, and I know initially there might be some shock. There might be. He's how old?
31.
Okay. So do we feel like the best 7-year window of Mike Trout's career is ahead of him?
I think he's in it.
Would you say he's towards the end of it?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Okay. But I mean, at 31.
Well, hey, look, and I'm not saying that the dude can't continue to just be fucking ridiculous for the next 7. I'm not saying that at all. What we're talking about is the likelihood and the longevity of a career, especially a superstar, performing at the level that he has for as long as he has. So for him, at this stage in his career, to be the guy that he's been this entire time, take one on the chin, be the guy for the halos that you can build around Artie if you and the crew can figure things out and get us all pointed in the right direction. I'm here. The most stable piece of fucking foundation you need, I'm here. And now, like I've said this, he's had a decade to watch how they're going to support him and how they're going to build around him play out. And he's still just kind of, stuck with it. He's hung in there. Stand by your man, Mike Trout.
There's a dozen years in the big leagues.
I know. And now he's going to watch them handle Shohei Ohtani, and he's got to be thinking, and I'm not saying he's got to be, he knows. He's looking at this going, all right, I'm the fucking dude here in the league. The next dude here in the league is that guy right there. And however they treat him and however they handle what the future looks like with him, that says it all for me. And if it has Shohei Ohtani leaving, there's no reason Mike Trout would want to spend 10 more minutes in Anaheim. Unless it was just I'm staying here, keeping my head down, signed a deal, blah, 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 blah. That might be the cloth that he's cut from ultimately. We won't know that, though, until that day comes. But I don't think that that's crazy at all, because recently we've heard Mike Trout become more vocal about things where in the past he wouldn't. He chimed in on the Astros stuff. He's talked about wanting to get to the postseason more and more, where in years past, it was just a pretty obvious thing that we were all talking about for him. Now he's starting to take up for himself and say some things publicly. And that right there was all the messaging anybody who's been paying attention to this situation for any period of time needed, was watching him start to become open and verbally communicating the desire to win. Whereas before it was just everybody going, when are they going to build around Trout? When are we going to see Trout in the postseason? Blah, 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 blah. So how they handle Shohei, Mike Trout is absolutely going to either hunker down or he's going to say, look, man, I'm trying to win.
Well, I will say, if you're an Angels fan, would you be, and you lose Shohei, would you be devastated if they trade Mike Trout, or would you maybe think that's smart?
Well, I don't think the Angels are interested in making baseball decisions. I think that they're interested in making like attraction decisions.
But if you're a fan, that's what I'm saying. If you're a fan and you see what Mike Trout has gotten you, obviously he's the greatest player of the generation, but no playoffs. Would you be that opposed to just trading him and being like, we've tried it?
I don't know. I mean, if you're an Angels fan, you got to be sitting there thinking like, we had not just one, but both of the best players of this generation on the same team, and it didn't do anything. Like we couldn't build around them. So what makes you think that if you trade Mike Trout, that you're going to use those pieces to then rebuild and get to a point where you can actually have a playoff team?
What you're in danger of is now losing both of these guys because of how essentially they've failed to build around both. That's what's going to happen. Mike Trout's going to watch Shohei Ohtani walk, and then Mike Trout's going to walk. And Angels fans are going to think, well, if they let Ohtani walk, at least we'll have Trout. Well, that might be the exit ticket for Mike Trout.
I also wonder, like, if you get to the point where Mike Trout really does want out, obviously he's under contract, right, and all that. But, like, the question of, is it worth it to trade Mike Trout at that point and kind of retool? I wonder, I would be very surprised if the return on Mike Trout was equal to what Angels fans would expect the return on Mike Trout to be, given the amount of money owed to him and, like,
the age.
I'll say his age, but just because I mean, he had 40 homers in under 120 games last year. The guy can still ball out, but, like, he's on this is not Juan Soto being traded, right? This is a guy on the other side of 30. Like, I do think the market would probably be limited to what, 4 or 5 teams once we really, really got down to it, who are in a position to absorb. I don't have it offhand, but $300 million.
Even some of the teams that you would imagine, maybe they don't have the payroll flexibility or the desire to add a guy who's on the wrong
they get
side
a lot of
30
stuff. Like, the organization there would be an influx of talent, but I'd be very surprised if it was worth. I think that ship sailed, honestly. If you were in the Mike Trout, trade Mike Trout to retool thing, like that was years ago. I think that was probably before the extension was signed, and I wouldn't have done it then either. But
that package, Jay, that package brings you 4 years ago, 5 years. That package brings you a big league ready, probably 2 big league ready, big league players as well.
The game's completely changed 4 or 5 years ago, for sure.
As well as premium prospects. So you've got 2 guys that you could probably plug into your roster today, as well as prospects 4 or 5 years ago. Now that's just not the case. Now you might get some high end pieces, but still no guarantee on what that projection looks like. It's just a completely different ball game now because of where he's at age wise, and to your point, the money owed and the market. The market, I feel like, naturally limits itself when all of those stars start to line up, meaning what the money is owed, the age, prospect, price tag. Yeah.
I mean, we talk about it all the time on this podcast. We see it on people talking about it on Twitter. Like, there are only a certain number of franchises who are playing in that particular end of the pool at any given time. And, like, it really doesn't matter how great the player is, because there are some teams, when we're talking about an investment of $250 or $300 or $350 million, are just not going to do that. Like, the Cleveland Guardians are never going to do that. And it doesn't matter whether the player was like the new version of Barry Bonds, it's a non-starter before it even begins. So, interesting theoretical.